Are we live?
We are now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Thursday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter. And boy, oh boy, Jen, I don't know. There's many places we could start, but I think it goes without saying that they really are doing their best to turn Mangione into a modern day Robin Hood of some kind.
Oh no, they're not. They're turning him. He is just like he's going to be like a legend.
Too many things at once. I agree with Henry. It's like everything is just kind of smorgasbording all at once as we enter what is truly the home stretch of the year. And I think it goes without saying that this is a very unique time in history. We've said it before, but there's no question that what we have in front of us right now is something unlike anything I think anybody's really experienced maybe ever. I mean, I don't even know what type of a reference. Maybe somebody who lived through World War II at the height of the Cold War, perhaps. It's very difficult to really say specifically where we can reference where there's this potential government shutdown. You've got this person who's being charged with terrorism instead of murder, if you want to call it that. There's this incredible overreach that's going on right now. And of course, with the spending bill, everybody is trying to do political one-upsmanship. You've got AOC, who did everything in her power to cave to the establishment in every way, shape, or form, only to have the rug literally ripped out from her at the 11 o'clock hour, which is what we all said was going to happen. And it's obviously not a surprise. And now we have all of these different things going on. As Josie says, we are headed to a boiling point. And what that's going to look like, I'm not 100% certain. I mean, from your perspective, what do you think it's going to look like once I don't even know how you could even describe if the dust is going to settle per se.
I'm hoping it doesn't. This is the revolution. I've been waiting for the revolution for my entire adult life. So bring it. I do not care that people are uncomfortable. I understand it's going to get more violent than this. I think, and I'm not saying that I think violence is great, because I don't. None of this is what I wanted. Look, if it were up to me, we'd be finishing up Bernie's second term. We'd have single payer health care and all sorts of good stuff. So this wasn't my choice. But I've been saying it for a long time. I think it's going to get a lot more violent before it gets better. And people need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because and buckle up, people, because this is just getting started. We are going to start seeing a clash. This is a revolution. You're going to start seeing more and more cop cities and more militarized, urbanized like warfare, basically to suppress the people that are getting restless, and that they are anticipating more people speaking up. And so this is going to be a clash, and it's a class war. This comes down to, I mean, in the case of Luigi Mangione, this is a class war.
100%.
He is not necessarily, he doesn't need to be part of that class for this to be a class war. And people need to understand that it is going to I think it's going to get more violent before it isn't. I think that the militarization of our police is going to get infinitely more and more scary because of their need to suppress what they see as a very threatening narrative.
The narrative only gets more and more detrimental to the average person who now is wondering, what is it going to take to get a break? The angle that the Democrats are playing right now by implying that if you refer to Elon Musk as President Musk, that somehow is going to make things better.
That's all they got. That's all they got.
Okay, so let's assume that Elon Musk is pulling strings. What you're admitting is that the billionaire class are the ones who are actually in control, even though you have significantly more billionaires donating on your side of the aisle than they do Republicans. So where the only logical answer to what's going on here is that there has to be, whether through hook or crook, a forced implementation of a social democracy. If we don't get that, then we are heading for some type of a revolution of sorts, because the masses are looking for a reason right now to continue to push this forward. And again, as we pointed out on the post that we put out earlier regarding District Attorney Bragg charging Luigi Mangione as a terrorist, this was done for two reasons. One, it was done so that they can use a federal indictment to give him the death penalty, although I don't really know what the hell the point of that is. I'm sure they have their reasons. But the second one, which is probably the more obvious, is that they are making it as clear as possible that the laws that are passed in this country with the harshest penalties are directed to protect the oligarchs, as Doug Gringsberg says, all the funky names. But in reality, it is to protect the upper class, the people who truly move the economy, the people who truly move global politics. These are the guys. These are the guys that the laws are made for. Now, you have Musk, who has an outsized amount of influence now because he did play a significant role from a funding standpoint to helping Trump, even though Trump was pretty much outraised by Kamala 3-1, but we saw how much that mattered. But, Bezos just went to Mar-a-Lago and met with Trump. And, Zuckerberg is already given $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund. This is how the game's played. It doesn't matter whether a Democrat or Republican is in office. What matters is that the people in power, the people who have the real power, are always going to get what they want. That's how it is. So if the people are tired of the way that the system is run, I am, and I'm actually doing okay within the system, I still recognize that this system works for very few people. And until we come to that realization, I don't know how, if anything, it's going to change for the better. And at some point, as you said, that proverbial Band-Aid just needs to be ripped off. This is not getting better. It's not going to.
So just to tell people in the chat that those are not Colin's graphics, those are Jen's graphics, and they're old. Those are very old graphics when we used to do story time, where I just put them all in there. But yeah,
well, he made Bezos look like he's a member of South Park, which I thought was good. He's got the red beanie on. Jen's got skills.
I have a few skills.
And don't forget, at 10:30 Eastern time, we are going to be transitioning over to another podcast. However, for an hour, Dieter McBusiness. Or Deter McBusiness. I know you hate when I say Dieter. He
says it's Dieter. He said you were right. I thought it was Deter McBusiness, but
Dieter
apparently
McBusiness.
It is Dieter.
Yes. But without further ado, we do have a wonderful guest to bring back onto our show, because with everything that's going on in our nation's capital right now, we figured if anybody can speak on a number of issues, those that are relevant to the domestic and foreign side, it would be somebody who really studies an issue that is of immense importance to us, which is, of course, our civil liberties. Free speech is something that I don't even really know if it exists anymore. I mean, let's be honest. Does it really exist anymore?
No, not here. I mean, it does when it's convenient, but that doesn't count, right? So that's the problem.
Well, but that's specifically why Noam Chomsky always said free speech is about protecting speech with people you do not agree with, not people you agree with. And we've become so tribal and so caught in our own web of, just repeated talking points that continue to become what becomes essentially a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's essentially what a lot of politics has become. And so for those of us who are trying to get the message out there that it should not be that way, that hyperpartisanship is going to be the death of us in many ways, then we need to continue to point out the good and the bad from both sides. And so without further ado, Jenin Younes, welcome back to Generational Change.
Thanks for having me back. It's so nice to see you guys.
Hi, it's good to see you. Welcome back. I'm not, Peter, you have a laundry list of stuff that you want to get into. So I'm not even sure what you're wanting to prioritize right now.
Well, first of all, before we get started, I hope you had a good holiday party. I can only imagine what those things are like in DC. Oh, Lord Almighty. But you know what's funny? I love the city. I don't love the politicians, but that's you got to find that happy balance.
Why don't you give an introduction as to who this is that we're speaking with?
Well, I couldn't.
Her name's Jenin. Okay, yeah, okay.
So please share with the audience who you are, what you're currently working on, and obviously, as we mentioned, the significance of the deterioration of our civil liberties as we speak.
Oh, okay. There's a lot there. My name's Jenin Younes. I'm actually named for the town Jenin in the West Bank, the hotbed of the Palestinian resistance, as some say. My dad's from the area. I'm a civil liberties attorney in Washington, D.C. And sort of in a nutshell, I would say I had a career as a public defender for nearly 10 years. But I dissented on COVID policy from most of the people around me who are on the left, as you might predict, given being a public defender in New York City.
Yeah.
I saw the mandates as unconstitutional. And so I joined an organization called the New Civil Liberties Alliance, which was challenging a lot of lockdowns and COVID-related mandates. And I very quickly got involved in challenging a lot of censorship going on around COVID. And it turned out that the government was coercing, pressuring, working with tech companies to censor speech when it departed from the government's preferred COVID policies. And that included top doctors and scientists and stuff like that. It was sort of considered a conservative cause. And I'm actually still on a case that reached the Supreme Court on an emergency motion. And, I think everybody saw this as defending conservative speech. And all the people I worked with tended to be conservative and claimed to be free speech heroes. And then October 7th happened. And all of a sudden, those very same people were very pro tamping down on speech. And what they would do was sort of come up with reasons. Well, this is actually violence. Well, this is inciting terrorism, or this is, these are threats. And I'm like, well, there are laws to deal with that. If someone's harassing somebody or somebody's hurting somebody, there are criminal laws. You don't need to stop the protests. But there was obviously a huge push to end protests against what was going on in Gaza. And I departed from most of the people I had sort of made common cause with during the COVID era. I would say that's my story. And so it's been a weird 5 years.
It makes interesting people come together, and it's not so much like the enemy, my enemy is my friend. It's this idea of context and nuance where people can agree on some things and not agree on others, and it's not all black and white. But somewhere, somehow along the way, and as somebody who is very staunch civil libertarian, and also a bleeding heart, leftist. So somewhere along the line, the left forfeited their passion for civil liberties. Yeah. The left decide, and by left I mean our left, our Democrats, our left politics. They're not really left, but somehow they were willing to forego their freedom and liberty for safety and security, because for the most part, they just live in a very fear-based world. Everything is fear-based. And so when COVID hit, and the fact that Trump was in office at the time, had a Democrat been in office at the time, I don't know if it would have necessarily had the same connotation. But everything having to do with that got completely partisanized. Yes. And civil liberties went the way of the right, apparently, in that argument. And I don't know. It's sort of like there was a divorce and somehow the right got civil liberties during COVID. And I don't understand. And I totally get that. But then you realize that these people were hypocrites.
Right. That's I agree with 100% of what you said. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Trump was so reviled by Democrats and people on the left. And, for good reason. I'm not a fan of him as a person. I think he says a lot of ridiculous things. His policies are a different story. I am very happy he didn't get us into any wars, and that's what makes me a little bit optimistic about his presidency. I mean, not like he's not who I would choose if I could choose any human being.
No, believe me, you're gonna like me, and you're gonna like me.
Yeah, I mean but I think a lot of it was just antipathy towards Trump, and he appeared to not take COVID that seriously. So the left was like, well, COVID must be very serious. And I don't know, if Hillary Clinton had been elected in 2016, I think it might have gone very differently. I think it
would have went a lot worse.
I think it would have been worse, but I think everything would have been worse. So
how do you think it would have been worse?
Well, here's the thing. And for the same reason, I think Kamala would have been worse. Neoliberal politics has been what has brought us to the mess that we are in now with the complete corporate takeover of this country. That is largely the result of neoliberal politics. And I cannot think of somebody more representative of modern day neoliberalism than Hillary Clinton. And that is her agenda. That's always been her agenda. And she's also an incredible war hawk. So I feel like those two things together are disaster.
No, I'm with you on that. I thought you meant worse in terms of COVID. So I think if she had been president, then people on the left would have been like, wait a second, we have to think about all the public school children who will be left behind. I think this was very much a reaction to Trump. So I think the COVID thing was exacerbated by him and the fact, not by him, but by the fact that there was this reaction to him. But yeah, I agree. I mean, and it's hard to say, like, I'm like, I'm more or less like you guys. I mean, I care a lot about social justice and the poor, and we might, I'm more of a libertarian, so I might have some differences of opinion about the best way to get there. But, Trump is like obviously not somebody I relate to in any way on a personal level, but I don't think his policies were all that bad.
I think he has no ism. Right? Like he doesn't have any ideology. He's about him in the moment. Any given moment. And whoever is the most recent person of substance and wealth to whisper in his ear is sort of like the direction that he'll go. So that could be better. It could end up being better, like with something maybe we'll get clemency and pardons for people that we otherwise wouldn't in some regard. But it could be worse because then you've got people like Miriam Adelson that are basically steering him in this Zio-Nazi direction.
Right.
And then the other thing you have to remember about Trump is that because he's not ideological, he's more inclined to end up doing something almost by accident that's truly a benefit to the greater good. Just the fact that he has a reverence for the Kennedys and the fact that he has RFK's son by his side, and he's like, oh, you totally want to get rid of the crap in our food? That's fine. Go ahead and do it. Just the fact that that's happening, the fact that that has become sort of a class consciousness now, where people are literally talking about, hey, do you ever look at the label of the potato chips that you eat every day? You probably should, because you would be really shocked at just how much that contributes to your overall health. And so that in itself, I think, is a natural positive effect that if it was Kamala or anybody else, if it was a GOPer or a Democrat, Trump is a truly unique, maybe if it was Bernie, but even then I'm not 100% sure. Trump is just such a wild card. You just don't know. And I think in that regard, it is a positive. Now, will it last? And the reason I mention that is obviously we're going to get into Luigi Mangione, but of course, one of the main reasons he came on in the first place, way back when, was because of the fact that you are Palestinian and you have lived this nightmare as so many other people have. And now with the prospect of Trump coming in and knowing this sort of unholy alliance with the Christian right, because obviously we have an even bigger, I shouldn't even say it's much bigger, but we have a bigger problem with Christian Zionists in this country. Look no further than Mike Huckabee, who I think is a perfect spokesperson for the evangelical right, who expect to see the end times in their lifetime, or it's like they're clamoring for it. So they have this, this unholy alliance with Mr. Netanyahu, who is the biggest war criminal walking the earth right now. And so I'm going to play this quick clip that I caught the other day, which is in regards to a documentary that's being made about him right now. So let's take a look at that, and definitely want to get your thoughts on where things are going, especially in lieu of what's happening in Syria right now.
Extraordinary new documentary that offers an in-depth look into the charges against Netanyahu, featuring leaked footage of police interrogations of Netanyahu himself, his wife Sarah, and those accused of bribing him.
Strictly speaking, this is a film about corruption, and it starts with petty corruption, being bribed with gifts and cigars, champagne, jewelry. But then the ultimate corruption is how he's tried to elude a reckoning for his misdeeds. And in so doing, he wraps himself in the mantle of prime minister and then wages endless war. Now, I can't think of really anything more corrupt than somebody who's administering the killing of women and children in order to be able to stay in power.
Yeah. Yeah, that sums it up. I mean, I'd say that's who he is. That's what he's trying to do. He wants to distract from the fact he has all these problems politically, and he wants to keep this war going for that reason. And I don't know. I want to say that ethically, you're almost a better person if you actually believe that the people pose a danger. But I don't even. I mean, I don't know. Like, that's neither here nor there. I mean, he's just an awful person. I think he might be the most dangerous person on the face of the earth right now.
I think he's the number one person liable to drop a nuke. If you ask me, who is the world leader that would most likely drop a nuclear weapon if they were backed into a corner, I have no doubt that he is the one who is the most dangerous.
Yes. No, I mean, absolutely. And I struggled a lot with the issue of, who I wanted to win. Obviously, who I want to win wasn't even an option. I ended up voting for Bill Stein, but, I just couldn't bring myself to vote for either of the major candidates. But I had a preference for Trump, again, not because I love him, but because I just couldn't bear to watch the administration, someone from the administration who's been basically enabling a genocide become president. I think you can't do that. And as many terrible things as Trump has said, and as much as he sidles up to Miriam Adelson, we just don't know. And that's better than Kamala, who's shown she's just going to keep this going.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that, when we see videos like that, the only thing I want people to be like, we have to be cautious of is this is not a Netanyahu problem. Yes, he is absolutely disgusting and corrupt, and he should get it, whatever is coming to him. And he is keeping this going because of that. But at this point, and quite honestly, from the beginning days of the state of Israel, this was their intent. So whether or not it was him there or it was someone else, the project for Greater Israel, which is really what they're trying to achieve, that was always the goal. And if anything, the people that are in, the other party people in his party and his cabinet, they wouldn't stop this. They wouldn't stop this. This just worked out conveniently that it was able to be sort of on him, since he could go down with the whole thing because of all his, legal charges anyway. But these people would be doing it without him.
Right. Right.
And then you look at what's going on, regarding this, you had the whole consensus over the past few years from this sort of I think there is a difference between the populist right and the conservative right. I do think that the conservative right recognizes that the energy, the enthusiasm behind Trump is really from the populist right, and they're just trying to catch the wave in that regard. But when you get right down to it, I look at somebody, as you alluded to, we are very civil libertarian in a lot of ways. That's why, you could look at like a lot of different people who are in the independent media space that say that they're libertarian. I think that Dave Smith, who obviously has a very big following, especially because of his relationship with Joe Rogan, really has a very good idea of exactly where everything is at. He's also Jewish like Jen is, and he's spoken about his experiences of what that's like growing up in a similar environment. And then who I would classify as the conservative right is somebody like Ben Shapiro, who people kind of pretend is like some type of populist right-leaning person, but he's not. He's crazy. Like, he's a crazy Zio-Nazi as far as I'm concerned. And when I think about the energy of where people want to go, I think it's more towards Dave Smith and not towards Ben Shapiro. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, I base a lot of my opinions about trends on what I see on Twitter. So I'm never sure if it's indicative of sort of the real world or not, but that's what seems to be happening. I'm just seeing more and more of it. And I mean, I frame a lot of my criticism as like, why are our politicians declaring their allegiance to Israel? They should be, interested in America. Yeah, exactly, of course. And what, the money that's being spent on Israel could be spent here. And I come at this very much from a sort of Palestinian human rights perspective. My family's there, so I care a lot about it. But I get that framing might be the best way to reach certain populations. And I have a large following from like libertarian right-leaning people. And I think that that's something that that maybe an argument that might appeal to them a little bit more.
My last point on this is, obviously, with everything that's going on right now, and we're trying to figure out if there's a consensus to sort of end this genocide, which is absolutely insane on its face, the fact that it's still happening. But I'm wondering, based on what's happening, particularly in Syria right now, is Israel overextending themselves, going into all of these different places? Like, is it conceivable that perhaps they're going to bite off more than they can chew?
You know, my military expertise is limited. I don't know. My sort of take on it is that the US will continue to just give them money to do whatever they want. I mean, there's never been any limitations. They've never, if you told me 18 months ago that Israel would be able to bomb Gaza nonstop for 15 months and kill probably 100,000 or more people, including 40,000 or so children, and the world would just let that happen, and the United States would continue to fund it, I wouldn't have believed you. And
well, listen, it doesn't happen often that we get a Zio in here, but we do have a Zio here who says that without Israel, there's no safe place for Jews. And of course, this is in the
Middle East.
It's
okay. Well,
it's almost like assuming that there is no such thing as anything prior to October 7th, 2023, just like there was nothing prior to 1948.
Can I say, Ari, seriously, start deprogramming. Start the process. Deprogram yourself, man. Free yourself from that. It's not true.
Also, if you feel so safe, then why are you bombing Gaza? Like, it's either one or the other.
bombing a pretty much an unarmed population on top of it.
A trapped, unarmed population. And I don't ever want to hear again about how Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. Gaza has no control over its borders, its airspace. If Gazans have no freedom to move in and out. If you have cancer, you can't necessarily get the medication you need. If you want to go to school.
Kind of like here in the United States.
Well, that's true, but it's not quite as bad.
Okay, so this not only is untrue, but it's dangerous. It's a very dangerous concept to put out there that Israel is the only place that's safe for Jews, because it's completely the opposite. Israel is actually what's making Jews unsafe across the whole world.
Of course.
So, until you recognize that by standing on someone else's neck, you're basically putting everybody at risk by doing that. Like, you're just not grasping this concept. Jews are not safe in Israel, which is why they're fleeing. And I can tell you that because they're coming to Florida in droves.
Yeah.
And this is my personal immigration crisis that we are having. Is there are a whole bunch of genocidal lunatics that are welcome here with open arms, as if there's nothing wrong with that. And then they're scared about Haitians.
Yeah.
Please. I haven't met a genocidal Haitian. So that's not my concern.
For everybody who is at the Cato Institute and the Heritage Foundation, any of these hard right, hard line immigration status supporters, you should have the same fervor for the Israelis that are coming over here. And they're probably not even getting screened. They're just being kind of
because they're white and wealthy. Honestly, it's so disgusting to me. But that's when people say, "Oh, Israel's so great for Jews." Yeah, tell everybody down at my Club Pilates studio, and then maybe they'll go home. Okay, because as far as I can tell, they're not feeling so safe there.
Yeah.
You don't have the watermelon earrings.
No, I was watermelon earrings. When I go to Pilates, I always wear watermelon t-shirts because I feel like I'm playing psychological warfare with I call it little Tel Aviv that hangs out at the Pilates studio. And it's so unfortunate. Like, it's really bad. It's bad here. We're having an infestation.
All right. I don't want this to turn into like a lengthy draw because we have other things covered, but this is the answer that Ari gives. So my parents had to flee Egypt to safety to Israel. That's why it's so important to us.
But why?
Yeah.
Do you know why? Look into why, Ari. Because the only reason that happened was because empire forced all those neighboring Arabic countries to expel the Jews, and do that because they were trying to create the Zionist state. People like Avishlam, who have written about this extensively, that were Mizrahi Jews from places like Iraq and Syria and wherever, were expelled because of what the Zionists were forcing the empire to do. That is why. And Egypt is a tool of empire. That has nothing to do with Palestinians.
Yeah. Game, set, match. And so, of course, okay, you know what? You see, Jen, every time you do it, you figure out a way to convert another because you are from the world.
I know. I was raised to believe that stuff too, but I kid you not. Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia are tools of empire. And that is why, and those kingdoms get in alignment because they were given those kingdoms. That's why we gave them those kingdoms instead of promoting greater Syria.
And in conclusion, why does that happen? For a very simple reason. Above every other reason, as disgusting as this is to say, Jenin, but the fact of the matter is the Palestinian people don't mean jack shit because they are in the way of two significant commodities. One, $500 billion worth of natural gas under Gaza soil. And then two, what is probably about 25 miles worth of coastline Mediterranean real estate in the Middle East. And it's all about money and power. That's all it's ever been about. It's never about anything else. And when people pretend like, oh, it's about what happened 3,000 years, my ass.
Jenin, have you ever heard of the term? Have you ever heard of Greater Syria? Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard the term. I'm not sure I exactly know what it.
Okay, so I had never heard of this either, and I just recently came up in a book that I was reading. So after World War I, when Britain and France were trying to figure out how to divvy up the Ottoman Empire, that they basically just came. This is part of the Sykes-Picot Agreement that drew up all. Prior to that, they actually went through the Levant, through the whole region, and they polled people. So this wasn't an election. It wasn't a vote. It was a poll. And they polled Muslims, Jews, and Christians throughout that region. And by the way, that region includes part of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan. It's pretty sizable. And the majority of those people wanted, I'll say voted for lack of a better word, wanted to be Greater Syria. And that entire region, what we think of as, it would be Palestine, Jordan, part of Lebanon, like part of Egypt. It was this giant region. And that's what they wanted. They wanted to be Greater Syria. And I can only imagine that the British and the French were like, oh, no. That is way too much real estate for a whole bunch of brown people. And so then they carved it up and put their little proxy kingdoms to oversee so that nobody could be unified. And therefore you divide up the Lebanese, the Syrians, and the Iraqis, even though really those are the same peoples. And you know what I'm saying? So like so when I hear this, I'm like, I'm so frustrated because I'm like, I vote for Greater Syria, you know, because that's what they wanted.
And when you think about where things have come on the domestic side today, and again, this is the whole thing about the erosion of civil liberties. I believe, and I'm sure, Jen, you would probably agree, and I would imagine you would agree too, Jenin, is that the whole point with Attorney General Alvin Bragg, who, let's be honest, I mean, everything these guys do, and yes, he is a Soros district attorney, that does matter. Everything he does to me is very calculated. I do believe that he probably intends to run for mayor of New York at some point. He definitely has that. I'm the big shot attorney, like, you know, Giuliani, and I'm going to become, you know, the next mayor, etc. So that's why he goes along with this ridiculous overreach of charging Luigi Mangione as a terrorist. And so this is what Mr. Bragg bragging about what he decided to do from an indictment standpoint.
Elaborate on the terrorism theory that backs up the work of the President Trump. What elements do you expect to be able to do?
Sure. So, you know, in its most basic terms, this was a killing that it was intended to evoke terror.
How was that possible, Jen?
Well, look, I mean, they're obviously going to throw everything that they can because, again, we're dealing with state attorneys. So, like, these guys will throw shit against the wall and see what sticks. I still don't see how they're going to find 12 jurors that have a bias, that don't have bias against the insurance industry. I don't see how you can find 12 people that will actually convict this guy of anything. So they have to ramp it up as much as they can because they're going to end up with a lesser charge that's going to, I don't see how they're going to convict. But anyway.
I think they'll convict. But the terrorism charge is ridiculous. The terrorism charge is ridiculous. That's clearly like, you know, a publicity stunt. Basically, they're playing to the public. I mean, and I guess because like a rich white guy, I mean, if this was a poor black person, in a way, it's like because he's sort of a high profile, wealthy person, that's sort of intertwined with the claim that like, well, this is a terroristic act that got a lot of attention and so is designed to strike terror in people's hearts. But you could say that about anything. I mean, someone kills a woman, okay, or like, so now women, is that, and you know.
Well, let me ask you this. Are they basically claiming that CEOs should be a protected class? because that's what this is sort of, that's what this sort of looks like to me. And if you're going to do like, because as our friend Jordan Cheriton has pointed out, you know, the guy who shot up the church in Charleston, and well, he wasn't charged as a terrorist.
I know. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I mean, this is clear. This is clearly murder, second-degree murder in New York.
But the terrorism, if it did, it's for a very small, specific class of people, and I'd like to see them like. But they truly do feel entitled to special protection. These people.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think that's part of what's going on. Also, I do want to correct what I said. I wouldn't say I'm certain he'll be convicted because he's going to have an insanity defense, and I don't know, I don't know what they'll.
I think it's going to be it's going to be fascinating to watch. I so wish I could like go sit in on Roy Dyer. And I went to law school in Texas. I know we call it Voy Dyer. It's weird. It's the only state in the country that does. So I'm just letting you know. In Texas, it's Voy Dyer, and we spent an entire half of like, civil procedure discussing that it is Voy Dyer, and they will kick your ass out if you want here. No. So, but I would love to see how they're going to select a jury for this case.
Well, we'll see what they end up doing. All right, let's continue.
And we've seen that reaction. The statutory elements we can go into, but its most basic term, that's what this is. This was not an ordinary killing, not to suggest that any killing is ordinary, but this was extraordinary, and the New York State Legislature has set out both the paths that we talk about, both the murder one and murder two, and this we allege is certainly squarely within those statutes which talk about intending to do exactly what we saw happen here.
And we've seen a real increase, sustained increase since December 4th in concern, not just from CEOs, but from corporations broadly. And so going back to the DA's point, the intent to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, which is, of course, at the root of our state terrorism statute, is very much borne out in this reaction, and for good reason. We've had a torrent of online threats. We've had real-world activity that the police commissioner flagged, which is abhorrent, and it causes concern. So we have done a lot to work with corporate security partners with whom we partner on a daily basis in this city, at the city level, at the state level, trying to make sure that everybody has the best practices that they need, that they know where to flag not just general ambient concerns, but specific threats that they might be receiving that a few weeks ago they might have written off as just noise in the online environment, that they now take seriously. So these
they say that this is we're not just concerned about CEOs, we're concerned about corporations overall. Yes. They didn't say anything about, we're really concerned about the average citizens walking the streets in New York City. They couldn't be more transparent in their buffoonery that this is all kowtowing to corporate special interests and nothing more.
Absolutely. This is like the ruling class is now kind of afraid. And in a way, I don't see this as totally disconnected from Palestine. Like the social contract has kind of been broken, and people are like, what? Like these ruling class people, they can just do anything. They can give bombs to blow children up in a foreign country for 15 months every day. And they, like there's just, and people are furious. And I'm not, of course, I'm never defending murder. Nobody should murder anybody.
Not that there's anything wrong.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
No,
I think it's all kind of interconnected, like frustration with this class of, especially class in America, the ruling class, who just think they can do whatever they want.
I mean, this is something where it's hard to not be rooting for somebody who is so clearly punching up for a change, because normally we see everybody is constantly kicking down and punching sideways so much. And that's what the elites count on. And that's what the ruling class wants. That's what our media does, is it strives to keep everybody blaming others and kicking down. So like Republicans blame immigrants and Democrats blame Republicans, and it's all that. And at the end of the day, the people that are responsible are these people. I don't mean her in particular. I mean, she's whatever, but like
that class
those are the people. right? Like those are the people that respond. So to see somebody actually aiming their anger in the accurate direction, it is satisfying. It is satisfying. And I don't feel bad saying that I think it's satisfying. And I've said for a long time, I think it's going to get a lot more violent. I think that you don't get to be a country dropping bombs on people all over the world and then clutch your pearls when some CEO gets shot. You don't get to, all you do is make weapons and guns. That's all we do is sell weapons and warfare around the world, and then be so surprised that somebody would just get shot in broad daylight. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more.
You know, just the fact that Jessica Tisch, if anybody doesn't know, I happen to be very familiar with the Tisch family because they are the co-owners of the New York Football Giants. And
is that where the Tisch school comes from at NYU?
Correct.
Most likely.
So Steve Tisch is a multi-billionaire. Steve Tisch was actually one of the co-producers on Forrest Gump. So that shows you how far.
But wasn't she the sanitation person?
Yeah.
That's what it says.
That's how it is. This is how it is. The oligarchs have come out from the shadows, and they now want to run everything. And and it's worse with the kids because very often the kids don't do anything to earn this. They have been completely given this world of endless amount of adulation and money and power, and they're just like, oh, I thought this is just how it is. And no one's going to tell them no because the system is broken and everyone is looking for a cookie. So that's kind of how
it pleases me. I find it very pleasing. I couldn't care less. And I am so glad. I'm glad that they're scared. They should be scared. When you live on that, when you live on people's backs, you should be scared.
Well, no one checks them. And the fact of the matter is that they're just doubling down on their hypocrisy, their ignorance at this point. And it culminated earlier today with giving Mangione the most elaborate perp walk you've ever seen. Like, this is crazy. You made him look like a hero of sorts, as far as I can tell.
He is. He is to people.
But we're going to have to tolerate what CNN has to say.
Murder through use of a firearm, a firearms offense as well for using a silencer and muffler in the alleged murder, as well as 2 stalking charges as well. His newly retained attorney, Karen Agnifilo, suggested that federal charges in this case would be overkill. I just want to note, you see New York City Mayor Eric Adams not far behind Mangione there. Again, a very large law enforcement presence. This was an incident that sparked worldwide attention as Mangione was able to get away soon after the murder, clearly in what was a calculated move, as well as investigators finding key details in the search for him, that book bag in Central Park full of Monopoly money.
First of all, that was great. And this is why I'm convinced, Jenin, that he actually wanted to get caught. The fact that he left evidence behind of a bag full of Monopoly money, but on top of everything else, why is Mayor Adams walking like 5 steps behind him?
Well, why does it take this many people to bring in somebody who's shackled? And don't any of these people have something better to be doing with their time and energy, like maybe protecting people that are, maybe, I don't know. I'm just suggesting.
Hey, hold on a minute. That $6 billion a year, $6.5 billion a year annual budget of the NYPD has to go somewhere, Jen.
Yes.
I mean, come on.
Like shackling someone who's clearly not a threat to somebody who isn't a CEO and killing people. So
I do want to say, I don't, I understand why he's become the symbol that he has. I don't condone the murder. And he was a father to 2 children, whatever. Even if he wasn't, that's not really, pertinent. I don't think murder is ever great or ever the right. I understand how he's become a symbol, though, and also the hypocrisy of this class of people who are so outraged at this killing and who are enabling the killing of people in Gaza and other parts of the world every single day is just, it's disgusting. I don't know what other word to.
Well, we talked about it with Governor Shapiro when he made that statement in Pennsylvania about violence is not how we solve our problems, and then you can superimpose that over the video of him signing the bombs that were sent off to.
You're right,
to Ukraine. So for people like that to clutch their pearls and be like, violence isn't how we solve our problems. It's contraire. It's exactly how we solve our problems here.
It's the hypocrisy is horrendous, and I also again. Not condoning violence, never condone violence, but it does feel kind of hopeless. This class of people, I don't know what you do to change it. And it's kind of one reason I've become more of a libertarian over the years from being quite left. And I really loved Bernie in 2016 before he got captured too. But
I did the
it's
best
not
I
so
could.
much.
I tried, and I was not able to succeed because the system is broken, and that is the way it is.
Poor Bernie. But I'm not someone who thinks that government cannot be good. I think there are other countries in the world where it does. Always has problems, but there are various countries I'd point to in like Western Europe or Scandinavia where I think more or less things operate reasonably well. But it's so corrupt in this country, and I don't know how you fix it. That my best solution is like just less, because they're all they do is take money to do infighting and kill people, and so I'd prefer to just have much less government.
And that's actually a great transition, Jenin, because clearly everyone is paying attention to this huge end of the year spending bill that they're trying to obviously ram through Congress right now, and of course the reasons for doing it and not doing it are completely juxtaposed to where I think most people are at right now. And the fact that they're using the ones that are suffering in North Carolina and Georgia as a result of the hurricanes, just the fact that they're using them as political pawns, I think is disgusting. But at the same time, I understand the concern that, Doge led by Elon and Vivek are pushing forward, is this idea of, do you guys ever pay attention to what goes into these bills? How much wasted money? How much of this is just a completely, one hand washes the other type of, system that does not have any merit anymore? I don't think they're wrong in pointing that out. But at the same time, it's not like they're going to raise the taxes on the super rich.
The people who should be paying a lot of taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a very active push towards civil libertarianism in this country. I think there really has been a very growing percentage of that political ideology simply because of what we're looking at here. Just the fact that they're trying to pass these must-pass bills that people desperately need. Oh, and by the way, we're going to throw tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of pork into it to just prove a point that you can't have standalone bills.
What was their raise? Because this is something that I'm not hearing enough people talking about, that they were giving themselves a 40% raise.
Yeah, like from 175 to 243 or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of people who deserve a raise less than our Congress.
Oh, and to see, what was his name? Was it Durbin? Dick Durbin sitting there saying, well, we haven't had a cost of living increase. Are you for real? Like, you haven't, neither has the UAW or a lot of other people.
I know, most people haven't.
But here's what,
living increase.
Yeah, but here's what I would say. I would give them the 40% living increase if they sign the bill that bans stock trading. You want your increase in your cost of living expenses, you got to give up the stock trading. That's the end of the conversation. You're not willing to give that up, you're not getting shit. And that's how there isn't one person, not a single representative that I've heard that actually has raised their hand and said, it's actually a good idea. We actually could use the living increase because that makes us less. If we are making enough money, it makes people less susceptible to go down the road of corruption. And
one would think. I don't agree. I think that
I don't think so either. Yeah.
I think you can pay them because they've been making good money. And yes, I granted what they're making now wasn't what is good as they've been making that for a while, but they make good money and they're filthy because the problem is they're greedy and they're power hungry. And for the most part,
and they have no morals.
Yeah,
I do think you do not reach high office, with a few exceptions in this country, without just being a very narcissistic, terrible person, and that's part of the problem. It's such a dirty game that nobody with morality and humility. So, and I'll say, like, I'll give a few exceptions to Thomas Massey. That's basically it.
Yeah. No, there's whoever it is who doesn't meet with, I mean, even Rand Paul, anybody who doesn't meet with the lobby industry and anybody who isn't like a corporate tool. Bernie too, and even though I have issues with Bernie, but they're all just in it in a way that it's just, there's no saving this. I think it's corrupting too. Like, once you get in there, you kind of can't escape it. And I think that's what happened to Bernie. Like, I do think he, has a good heart and probably is a good person, but it's just an inherently corrupting profession. Yeah.
When I think about what needs to be spent, something as simple as pushing forward on single payer. And ultimately, I also revert back to how we ended up in this situation right now. You know, AOC, who still has political gravitas, I'm not going to say that she doesn't have it, but she is somebody who clearly made a decision. Who knows when it happened, but made a conscious decision that her career was more important. Just like Obama made a very conscious decision early on in his presidency that not only his career, but his ability to get rich was more important than being a president that could have a true legacy that would be talked about for generations to come. He's now considered in many ways a failure, which is unbelievable. You know, his legacy in many ways is Trump getting elected twice in 2 non-consecutive terms. And so by that measure, you now look at the road that AOC decided to take, and she ultimately thought that she was playing her cards right in ultimately trying to get a position on, it's not appropriations. What was the... it may be in this tweet. I'm going to pull it up. And so, so oversight, which is still a very important committee. But according to Power of the People, Jerry Connolly, who has terminal cancer, unbelievable, wins Dem steering nod for House oversight, beating AOC 34-27. I'd love to see who the votes were. I mean, if our congresswoman, your congresswoman now, Jen, had a vote in this, I'm pretty sure we know which way she went. After Pelosi waged a last-minute campaign to tank AOC's bid, this is what working within the Democrat Party gets you: nothing, and why many of us have left the party to vote third party.
Oh, AOC Pelosi. That's so disappointing for her. It must be so, like, she really thought that she was sucking up to Mama Bear there. I guess that didn't quite work out so well for her.
And what is the point? Like, I understand that you want to get on a committee, but what does that do for regular people? Like, if you've staked so much of your political career on this idea of, I'm going to climb the ranks, what is that going to do? You think you have any more effect on the outcome of what actually will affect policy and the betterment, the lives of people, than what Luigi Mangione did?
But I think it's sort of human nature that when you end up, you end up in a profession and you want to be better than the other people in that job. It's just how human nature works. So your natural inclination is to try to climb the ranks in that, without regard to I think you have to be an exceptional person and you have to work hard to check that instinct, which I have to do too. And I was kind of like a rising star on the libertarian right and free speech First Amendment lawyer. I was on Fox News all the time. And after October 7th, I knew if I took the position I did that I was going to tank my prospects. And I did. I don't get invited anywhere anymore. And my I thought, okay, maybe it's just a coincidence. And then my colleagues tell me they go to, events and everybody complains about me. And they're like, why is she still working there? Why don't they fire her? And how can you even talk to her? She's such an anti-Semite, which is ridiculous if you see my tweets. But in any event, it's not easy. And sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, did I do the wrong thing for my son? No. He's the most important thing for, to me.
How old is he? How old is your son?
He's almost a year now.
Oh, okay. You have baby.
Yeah. He was really little last time I was on this.
You did the right thing, and you did the right thing because if you are not true to who you are, that'll never be the right thing for your kid, no matter what.
Jenin, we've never actually asked a guest before this, but I think it's probably important to note. A lot of times we see the regulars, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, or Fox News, the three main cable networks, but also, you have the Sunday morning shows. How does it work in terms of compensation? Because I would imagine a lot of I don't want to not be invited onto these shows. I don't want to not be invited to these parties. I would imagine a lot of it is monetarily appealing to people. Would you say that that's a big part of it?
I actually never made any money. You have to be, I was sort of reaching the point where I might have been, but I wasn't that sought after yet. But it's definitely like a thing at work. Okay, you're getting our work out there. So I would say indirectly made me money in terms of my value to my employer. And also sort of reputationally, you're, on Fox News all the time. Ooh.
Yeah, but then it's also it's almost like a false pretense in some respects because, you could get on these shows and you could get the exposure, but then you think about the people that start following you on social media. The people who truly follow those shows and then end up following personalities on social media in particular, they are the most drone-like politicos that exist. And if you deviate from the main talking point in any way, shape, or form, and only on one issue, it doesn't even have to be an ideological shift in any way. It could just be this one thing, like Israel, for example, that they don't agree with. You are immediately cast aside. It's like, oh, bad person.
Absolutely. I mean, I found that out after October 7th, like very quickly.
And it's true it's true in the left too. We call them peppers. They're progressive except for Palestine.
Yeah. And how that ultimately comes to an end, I'm not 100% certain. But I would imagine that as we enter into a year that is going to be very unique, to say the least, who knows what to expect with Trump. One thing I do know that will happen within his first 100 days is that he's not going to blame the parliamentarian about getting something passed that he really wants. I don't.
Did you guys watch the interview, Tucker Carlson's interview with Jeffrey Sachs?
I have not watched it yet, but I will tell you, I sent a tweet on Jen and I's behalf to Yashar Ali because he
said he hates him. I know.
He trashed Jeffrey Sachs. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind?
You mean like Professor Jeffrey Sachs?
He trashed him.
Why would one do that? He's like the nicest guy ever.
Because Jeffrey Sachs, who is a total liberal lefty, and Tucker Carlson, who is a total populist righty, have a complete are in complete agreement on endless war, particularly in Ukraine and Israel. And so because of that, this is like, oh, I have to remember who's buttering my bread here. And so Yashar Ali is attacking Jeffrey Sachs because he's saying what an absolute waste these two wars are. And he's like attacking him for it. He doesn't understand nuance. I'm like, are you fucking crazy?
It was about Syria, I think, right?
I think so. I think it was like Israel's expansion into Syria. He's like, you don't know what you're talking about. The Syrians are thrilled that the Israel is there.
No,
like,
they're not.
I don't think so. I don't think
my stepmother is Syrian, and she emigrated here in 2019. So she's like, I mean, she spent her first 45 years in Syria, and she's like very upset. But she did say opinion in Syria is divided. It's not, but she like thinks Assad got an unfair rap. She said she knows for certain the chemical attack thing was faked, and frankly, she was telling me the story, and her English isn't that good, so I didn't quite understand it. But she was like explaining to me why she knew that to be true. And was just saying that the situation with the rebels taking over was scary, and especially for minorities. And she's a Muslim, but she belongs to a sect called the Ismailis that's sort of considered minority. So she was scared for her family.
Right. No, there's definitely a mixed bag of opinion because Syrians are not a monolith, and there's definitely and I would think, and this is just based on my life experience, that there's most likely a class element involved in this some way, somehow, because there seems to be, like in all of these things, whether it's Venezuela or countries where you see the wealthier people have a very different opinion about the things than the regular people. So I don't know, and I don't know enough about Syria, but what I do know is that if it benefits us, that means that it's not good for regular people. If it benefits us in some way, that means it's good for empire. And I will automatically assume that it's bad for the bulk of the Syrian people. And if for whatever reason, it's sort of like a broken clock being right twice a day, like maybe sometimes what we do does benefit somebody, just because. But no,
I don't think so here. Yeah. I have to say, if there's one thing to do over the holidays, watch that interview. It was like, I mean, I know a decent amount about all these issues, but it was life-changing to me.
The Jeffrey Sachs interview?
With Tucker Carlson. Yeah, okay. Sachs kind of, so like I know about all of these issues individually, but he kind of ties it all together in a way that I had not. And basically, I mean, the thesis is basically that Netanyahu in the early 90s had this idea he wanted to remake the Middle East, basically to benefit Israel, to expand Israel, and then also to like take out any heads of state who were supportive of the Palestinian people. And we have gone to war and he wanted America to do this for him. And we've done all of the wars, 6 of the 7 wars, except Iran. And he tied Sudan and Somalia to this, which had never occurred to me.
Okay, I think this is a fair question, Jenin. I can't let you go without this one. As a contributor to the Federalist Society, are you associated in any way with Leonard Leo?
I don't know who that is.
Okay, it's probably better that you don't. Okay, so Leonard Leo is probably as responsible as anybody in the what I would consider to be the extreme conservative right of the GOP that basically wants to gut every single known program that helps people in this country. There's not a lot of them, but the ones that are there that have any value, it's this total austerity hawkery is what Leonard Leo is all about. I think he's also like a Christian nationalist in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Well, that's a
those
problem.
Are all things I'm not.
I was going to say, how would you be affiliated with the Christian? Oh my God, no.
I would be. I don't know. When I look at my paycheck, I pay around 35% of my income in taxes. I would be thrilled to pay that if it was going to poor people who need the help. I do not want to pay that to go to rich Congress people and bomb children. Like that's what drives me nuts.
You know what? We've both been saying this since probably for the better part since we've been doing this podcast. I have maintained for the longest time, despite the fact that if you are a true progressive, you would acknowledge that there is a hell of a lot of crossover between progressives and libertarians. There is synergy on a lot of key issues. Now, of course, economically speaking, it doesn't always fall into those guidelines. And I do think there is a distinct difference between libertarian left and libertarian right. I do think that there are those core principles that do make a difference. But if we're looking at, let's just say, and we can end on this note, like healthcare, for example, and what's ultimately going to come of this, because I do think that it is going to become a much more seismic issue with Mangione, because I don't think this is the last we're going to hear of something like this. I think that this is something that is going to be an even bigger circumstance as we go forward. And single payer is the most libertarian answer to a universal healthcare system because it removes all of the waste. If the goal is to get rid of the pork, is to get rid of the for-profit middlemen that have no reason to exist and give coverage that is going to be the most cost-effective, you're saving $500 billion a year and you're covering everybody and you're removing the for-profit component. If you do that and you can keep the free market where doctors can make, if they're good enough to make $1 million a year, then so be it. But we don't need Aetna, we don't need Cigna, we don't need Pfizer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, I think that that is one of many issues where there is camaraderie and we can find that common ground.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I'm not an economist. I can say my brother lived in Sweden for a while where they have single payer, and he had like a health issue and couldn't get to a doctor for like 4 months, and it was a really big problem. So, and I hear horror stories from various countries with that. So that doesn't mean it's inherently a problematic idea. It has to be done in the right way. But I agree with you. Like, why are we paying these insurance companies that do actually, they don't provide any kind of service whatsoever?
They don't do anything. They just make money.
I know. It's completely insane. And so like, I'm not kind of a philosophical libertarian in that, I think that we are all part of society. I think we should all contribute to society and take care of each other. And there's a social contract. Our government does it so badly that I would say I sort of identify as a sort of libertarian due to the circumstances of the United States' horrible political system. But if we had a better one, I'm amenable to.
We have a capitalism problem. We have a capitalism problem.
Yeah, and a corruption problem. I mean,
it is above everything else. And when people talk about the government and the government can't do this and the government can't do that, I agree with you because the government is captured by corporate special interests.
That's absolutely 100%. Absolutely.
Guys, the link is in the description. So make sure that if you are not currently following Jenin on social media, all of her links will be there. Make sure that you check her out. Very important that we continue to have these conversations, especially now. I think from both Jen and I's perspective, we can't say enough about you and your family. There are no words that we can say. It's absolutely insane that we, the people, do not have control over the direction that our military-industrial complex goes. It rips at us every day. I do my best to not think about what the Palestinians are still going through right now. The fact that people do not want to acknowledge this reality is so despicable, but it also speaks to the privilege that exists in this country. When we talk about American privilege, it's very real. And I can only imagine what it would be like if Americans, even for a minute, had to experience death from above raining down on them every day, literally not knowing if you walk from one street to the next, if a bomb is literally going to drop on you. And to me, I don't want that to have to be the reality for Americans, but I would like to know.
We have it coming. Oh, we got it coming.
We do. And that to me is the scariest part of all. So from me and from you, Jen, as well, nothing but, love and light to you and your family. And hopefully we will see our way out of this at some point in the near future. That's the irony of Trump. It's like all of a sudden he's in there, and now you're going to get millions of people that all of a sudden care about what's happening to the Palestinians because it's politically convenient to care about it. Well, you know what? At this point,
I'll take it, but I'll take it.
Anything. Exactly. Thank you guys so much for having me, and happy holidays. It was so nice to talk to you.
Great to see you, friend.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, as you can imagine, I don't want to know what it's like to have to be in that same situation. And know
I force myself to watch it every day.
Yes, but when you can't really do anything about it.
I didn't say it was good. I didn't say it was easy. It sucks every single day. I've been living with this every single frigging day. I can't get out of it. There's no way to escape it. And quite honestly, even if I could, I wouldn't want to until it's over. So I see it every day. I walk around with it. It festers. It's horrible. I feel like this dark cloud is hanging over everything. And it's
I don't even think, and you know what, though? I don't think you would feel that there's a dark cloud if we actually had a country that was really fighting for the liberation of the Palestinians. And then it was just a question of how long before.
Then we would, wait. If we had a country that was fighting for the liberation of Palestinians, then there wouldn't be this situation in the first place. So
well, that's what I'm saying, because then it would have been over a lot sooner. The problem
it would have never started. That's the whole point. No, we're evil and our empire is evil and we're doing evil shit. And I'm not going to just not look at it because I can't not look at it. I have to look at it. It's our duty to bear witness. It's the least I can do is watch.
And, it is funny because I did want to bring this up, and I think it's very important. This is something that, Jenin had mentioned, and we can talk about it a little bit further. You talk about the dishonesty in the media, and we try to point this out all the time, and it was a huge part of why Trump was able to ascend at the rate that he was able to ascend at, and ultimately has been the president and will be the president again, is because corporate media is not only completely captured, but it is completely dishonest, especially when it comes to trying to drive a narrative when it comes to endless war. And this is what they did pertaining to what's going on in Syria.
3 months in a windowless cell, he can finally see the sky. My God, the light, he says. Oh God, there is light. My God, there is light. Okay. Stay with me, stay with me, he repeats again and again. For 3 months, I didn't know anything about my family. I didn't hear anything about my children.
I'm not understanding what you're saying about this.
This is all a lie.
Are we sure that's been debunked? Like this particular man?
This has been debunked.
Okay. See, I don't know the backstory. I don't watch CNN, so I don't know who this is. Is this particular man's story has been debunked?
So this man's story has not only been debunked, but Clarissa Ward, who is known for her bullshit and being a correspondent in the UK and the Middle East. She's an American, but this is where she's a correspondent. And so they sent her to Damascus to try to make it seem like, we just stumbled upon this prisoner and we saved him.
Is this the same one with the backpacks and the chemical weapons?
I don't remember, guys. Can you verify if that's true or not? I'm not sure about that. But this was completely staged, and it was done to sort of create this narrative of, oh my God, look, as Travers says, he was a Syrian corrupt military officer. Oh,
Okay.
you saved me. You say no. What you're trying?
But here's the problem with this, though, is it's sort of like then it doesn't give credibility to stories that are true.
Of course not.
And here's the thing. I am not going to opine about prisoner life in Syria, but I do believe that all empires are imprisoning whoever their political prisoners are for whatever reasons. And I don't doubt that I'm sure a lot of people are much better off now that Assad is gone. That being said, there's a lot of people that are now going to be worse off with the new Al-Qaeda in charge. So this is annoying because there probably are many legitimate stories.
Exactly, but that's what CNN chooses to cover. They want to cover something that doesn't have any merit to what's really going on. They want to justify the removal of Assad regardless of what it's going to bring. This is just like Gaddafi. This is just like Saddam. It's all the same every time, and it's always about controlling corporate power. It's
okay. So Adam's like, I don't feel bad for Syrians at all. I feel bad for everybody whose country, they're just people. They're just people. They're just
like the Ukrainians.
Exactly.
They're just people.
They're just people, or Russians, or anybody. Yes, I do. I feel bad because they're being completely destroyed by empire.
That's it. I
totally feel bad. And I stand with Syrians, but the problem is saying that, what does that mean? Some Syrians like this, some Syrians, again, they're not a monolith. I don't see, this is why I don't watch mainstream media, because I do not trust the veracity of their stories.
No,
I haven't in years.
But when you lie so horrifically, it's like, I don't know how people live with themselves.
On a really nice bed, probably with like a really fancy sound machine, and maybe they also have a really good view, so they sleep well. You know?
Yeah, but how do you justify that if you're not a sociopath?
Oh, I didn't say they weren't sociopaths. I mean, that's another story. But yeah, I wasn't aware of that particular anecdote, that particular story. I do know that they have found a lot of graves, a lot of mass graves. I do know that there are things that are going to be coming up now about what Assad was doing that are going to be horrendous. I don't doubt that, but that doesn't make this the better solution. And it sure as shit does not make it our business.
No,
that's what I know.
And again, I am not one to dispute that Assad was a bad guy, a good guy. Here's what I know. He didn't want to do business with the United States. That's it.
Well, I think there's more to it. And there's more to it than that. There has something to do with him. And I don't trust what we think about him, but I kind of think about what do the other Arab leaders think about him? Like
it's necessary to sell endless war. That's it.
And there's a pipeline situation, and this has to this is a Turkey situation, not the food turkey.
Are you sure?
I don't eat turkey, but I'm just saying that this is a Turkey situation. There's a lot of variables. It's not one thing. So yes, there's a pipeline. There's also the complete utter. Why can't people just leave the friggin' Kurds alone? My entire life, everyone is hating on the Kurds. Why? Just leave the friggin' Kurds alone, for God's sake. Jeez Louise. There's a part of this that has to do with that. There's part of this that has to do with the pipeline. There's the whole empire thing. There's obviously something having to do with Putin because of the connection to Russia. There's a lot of variables. What I know is that we do not give a crap about the regular people that live in Syria. That's what I know.
We definitely do not. I think that a good place to conclude this conversation is, Chris Cuomo got booted from CNN, and now he's stuck doing his own thing. Now, whether... Well, listen, it's very
a turd. I hate that we're covering this, but okay, it's better than other people. But he's such a turd.
So he likes to pretend like he's connected to regular people, but he's really not. So yes,
he is Fredo. Oh my God, that's so true. I do think of him as Fredo. I
would say if you want to set him off, if you want to piss him off, just call him Fredo.
Oh,
that's the easiest way to get him upset.
I would. I'd be like, pipe down, Fredo.
So Fredo. So Fredo had an opinion. Actually, it's not even an opinion. It's more of a question. He doesn't fully understand why Luigi is so popular. So we'll see what he has to say.
For what he did. Why? Let's get the answer from one of them. Jamie Peck joins us now. Thank you for taking the opportunity.
Thank you for having me.
Help me understand. Why is it a beautiful thing? Why do you support him assassinating another human being in cold blood?
So I was definitely joking a little bit, obviously drawing a comparison between what Donald Trump said about himself and the sort of explosion, this appetite, this excitement for the conversation that Luigi Mangione started. But I do think to call this an act of terrorism is an insult to the intelligence of the American people. Terrorism is something designed to strike fear into the hearts of non-combatant civilians, right? The general population. Nobody but a tiny class of CEOs has been made to live in fear by Luigi's actions, but nearly everybody knows what it's like to live in fear of having a necessary medical claim denied, the fear of having your life ruined or potentially ended by a stack of medical bills. And I think in a system with so much violence that's directed from the top down, it should come as no surprise when violence begins to boomerang back from the bottom up onto the 1%. Also, I would like to remind you on the subject of terrorism, nearly 3,000 Americans lost their lives on 9/11, right? This is the largest terrorist attack this country has ever seen. An estimated 190,000 people are murdered each year by our broken healthcare system.
That's real terrorism.
There it is. And there it is, because they do not consider austerity and denial of care as violence. They don't consider that violence. So to them, this is so shocking. It's out of nowhere. He was killed in cold blood. He was not doing anything, because they don't view that as violence. And unfortunately for them, the rest of us seem to.
And Spam is right. Brian Thompson murdered more people than bin Laden did.
Absolutely.
But as Bill Burr points out, because the way they do it, it's considered clean. They're not actually pulling the trigger, but they are absolutely.
And that is why, and this is why, and as someone who did criminal defense, and I've said this before, like there's honor amongst thieves. This is something that to me is extremely courageous. This is extremely courageous. Now, granted, he might be someone who lives in pain, has nothing to lose, isn't thinking of it that way. I don't know. But
he's had a chronic back problem.
He was willing to get his hands dirty, unlike someone like Brian Thompson, who hides behind a desk and is a coward in how he kills people. This is somebody who just did it.
Yeah.
And there's something about that is like, yeah. Because it's what everyone's been thinking. And if they weren't, they wouldn't be having this response to him.
And this is exactly why, especially now, you are never, ever putting the cat back in the bag on the issue of universal health care. This will do more to forward the movement towards a single payer system than anything AOC Pelosi could ever have done by getting on the oversight committee. Just pointing that out.
Well, and that's why when they say things like violence doesn't work, this isn't the answer, I beg to differ. I think that this is kind of turning out to be the answer, because we've already gotten more attention paid to healthcare since this happened than we had in like 3 years. Absolutely. So to say that this doesn't work is just patently untrue.
No, the only time that I can honestly say that there was real momentum for single payer was right after Bernie won the Michigan primary, and then he did the debate with Hillary in Miami, and it really centered on that issue. And it became clear that without the chicanery, that if he were able to have won, that would have been real momentum towards at least a public option. But since then, there's been nothing in almost a decade. And now all of a sudden, you have real momentum. And this time it's different because, as you've often pointed out, this is coming from the outside, not the inside.
I know.
The people on the outside are telling the people on the inside, you better fucking pay attention, because we're sharpening our knives and forks now, and we're getting ready to eat your ass. That's what they're going to do. That's what's going to happen if they've.
I don't like violence. I like the natural and logical consequences of people's behavior to occur. So when somebody is constantly committing violence, the only way that that's going to stop is when it comes back at them. That's karma. I don't do violence. I don't raise hands to anybody. I am not a proponent of violence. I am a proponent of the logical and natural consequences of people's behaviors. And that's really what this particular situation is. So I don't generally, I'm a supporter of violence. I'm not.
Neither am I. But it can certainly be understood. We'll continue.
That is the equivalent of 52 9/11s worth of deaths every year. Every single week, another 9/11 happens. So I got to ask, who is the more prolific terrorist in this equation?
Well, first of all, as you may know, Jamie, terrorism is a specific legal standard, right? There's no question that Luigi did what he did in furtherance of a political agenda. He said it. Okay, so I don't see this as a question of fact or law. It's about the policy behind it. What I don't understand, and you are somebody who in your positions is constantly trying to embrace the humanity of situations, right? I've been looking at why you support what you do with what's happening in the Middle East conflict. To me, this seems to be anathema to this. Nothing within a system gets changed by violence.
I don't know
How
that.
Can you
I think our entire world has gotten everything done by violence. Our entire species is based on violence. The fact that he would say that is so absurd to me.
Well, what it also speaks to, and this is why having the overreach of charging him as a terrorist is proving one thing to the masses, is that violence actually scares the shit out of people in power because they don't know how to defend themselves. They're also the last people. Again, I've always said the privileged liberal class are the most dangerous people in society because they are the first ones to say yes to war and no to defense of the people.
And I agree. The people who deny healthcare are violent serial killers. Agreed. And that is where we need to, and as long as we keep we need to create that narrative more and more.
We're doing our best. All right, let's continue.
Yeah, we're having a conversation, but we're not having the right one because the healthcare industry now has high ground because they've been victimized by this chooch. This isn't how we get insurance to be better, by putting a bullet in somebody's head. Why would you get behind that?
Spoken like a privileged.
I've never advocated violence as a tactic for change coming from
You're celebrating the guy.
People that I organize with. This was a lone wolf act of violence on the part of Luigi Mangione, and it seems to have started a huge conversation among everybody about the violence, the death, and the murder caused by this broken healthcare system. Again, 9/11 every single week, indefinitely, until someone puts a stop to this madness. So we are here really to advocate for the thousands and thousands of people who have spoken up against an unjust and violent healthcare system, which is not a fact of nature.
Jamie, that's 100% fine. And by the way, it's not new, okay? People have been crusading against insurance companies, but there's no question we haven't gotten changes to the system that are necessary. No question. You're talking to one of them right now. I look this old because I am old, and I've been covering that system for over 25 years, and almost
we have not heard yet as to whether or not.
Look at how, did you see how cool that mug was? That Duncan mug, deny, defend,
and depose.
Yeah. And, I got to say, if you are at a point now, and this is the beautiful thing about what has happened, like if Cuomo is commenting on this and he is not immediately saying, well, honestly, the only solution that's going to solve this for everybody is a single payer system, then you are continuing to defend a system that is killing people.
He can't wrap his head around this. That's what it looks like. Like he's like one of those where it does not compute. Like they cannot wrap their heads around this because they are so in a bubble.
Yeah. No, that's it. That is it. There is nothing else to it. That's why when he did his stunt on CNN a number of years ago, where he came out of the basement,
he was such an idiot. Oh my God.
I mean, my God, he was coming out of a $5 million home in the Hamptons, for God's sake. It's just that disconnect is very real. Like, it's real. They honestly see themselves as better than the average person. Just like Israel sees themselves as better than everybody. Israelis see themselves as superior people. And that's why they're allowed to get away with mass genocide. That's it. You know?
Yeah.
That's true. And he never would. Why would he? Not with that fucking salary. That's what it comes down to. That's why Clarissa Ward makes up phony war stories about prisoners.
But what's so fucked up about that is there's probably plenty of real ones.
Of course. But again, it's about fulfilling a narrative. That is the essence of why they have to do it this way. I'm just impressed. Listen, if there's one thing I can credit Cuomo for, it's having Jamie come on the podcast. That in itself actually means something. And I'm going to reach out to Jamie and see if she'll come on. Because she's kind of been out, she's been kind of like away from this stuff for a while.
I was going to say, I feel like I haven't seen her in like years.
Well, she left Sam like a while back, and then she just kind of went underground, so to speak. I mean, let's be honest, Jen. Emma Vigeland basically replaced her. Like, that's essentially what happened, if we're being honest. So we'll finish this out.
Luigi is going to accept these funds. If he doesn't need them for whatever reason, they're going to be distributed to other people who are facing political charges. But I think in this country, money is a form of speech.
Oh, no, listen, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying you can't do it, Jamie. I'm saying, why would you do it? You have the right to do it. I'm saying, why is it right? Why don't you take the money and give it to people who've gotten screwed by insurance companies?
He really doesn't get it.
I think I need to refocus once again onto the murder and the violence inherent in this system that so many people all across the political spectrum, across lines of political difference, conservatives, liberals, Democrats, and Republicans are all excited and energized to talk about this and to have
raise money for the action groups that go after the insurance companies. I'm with you. This is not about the insurance companies. That's my problem, Jamie. I had you on not for sport. I want you to understand that I don't think that the energy that you're putting towards backing this guy is getting us to a better place with the problems of the system.
What a sanctimonious
That's my point.
trick. That's why he had her on, was to set her straight. He had her on to set her straight.
But she's destroying him. And on top of everything else,
he's such an idiot.
More than anything, listen, he didn't say anything ridiculously stupid until he decided to say, well, you could use that defense fund money to help people suffering in this healthcare state. What, $150,000?
Right. Who's that helping? He's just so obtuse. Like, this is just absurd to me. But
and you think he's obtuse on purpose, or he really is this? He's like this.
I think, first of all, I think he is Fredo. I really do. I think Chris is not the sharpest tool in the shed. He's definitely not the favored son. He definitely, I would think Andrew would have had to off him a while ago. But the point, he just gets into too much trouble.
So what you're basically saying is that Mario is Vito, Andrew is Michael, and Chris is Fredo. And basically Andrew.
I'm very certain that's the hierarchy. But this guy, he's never been a rocket scientist to begin with.
Not at all. He comes off like a privileged jock who somehow got a microphone put in front of him for a career. And he is a Nepo baby. But he
tries to portray himself. Well, this is what's so funny is I feel like he tries to portray himself like he's some Italian from the streets. And
that's why he reacted the way he did to a guy much smaller than him. He got called Fredo.
He thinks he's all that. But it's so funny because he's such a silver spoon. I don't know. It's interesting. He somehow really thinks he's some badass Italian from the hood.
Yeah. No, there is no question that, we'll finish this out. But Jamie, this is, again, credit
you could
to
see
her.
She thinks he's a moron.
Well, yes, but credit to her for not allowing him to drive the narrative in another direction. She's been crystal clear, and this is why she is the missing piece and why Sam Cedar's show has never been the same since she left.
Use the money you raised for the people who need it. not this guy.
Well, I believe we really need to treat the causes of problems rather than merely the symptoms. And I think if you want to know what kinds of tactics I do advocate for, I think we need a mass movement. You know, change comes from the bottom up,
but not a bunch of Luigis.
Down. And I'm talking about mass resistance to medical debt. If everybody burns their medical bills in front of the health insurance company offices en masse, that's going to create change. And we're just trying to figure out how to use this moment of of popular excitement that has been touched off by, yes, a violent act that I would not advocate for as a tactic if it were up to me, but it happened. And we're trying to figure out how to ride that wave and move this conversation forward into mass action that can really make a difference.
Well, listen, I'm here for it. I always have been, but we're covering it. I would love for that to be the discussion. But as long as this guy is glamorized, it is a distraction. It is not a vehicle for focus.
I don't agree.
You know who? It's funny because you've often brought up my uncle. My uncle would love to have his way with someone like Chris Cuomo.
Let me tell you something, all right? I'm going to take you out of my corniche.
You talk about
it's like, listen, Fredo, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take you out for a ride in my corniche. We're going to go down to the docks, and I'm going to show you what it's like to really be in this.
Explain to him how things work.
Oh, absolutely.
I need to explain some things to you.
What's amazing is that his father, Mario Cuomo, he really did interact with the mob. Like Mario was from the streets. Like,
but somebody who took care of his people.
That's
and
true.
Rewarded his people. And the people, I actually dated someone who's both of his parents worked under the administration. His father worked like directly with the governor he was something in the finance department, whatever. But like, he really did take care of his people. And there was an honor about him. And I'm not saying that I think that there was nothing going on there. Who knows?
No, Mario Cuomo. No, remember, Mario Cuomo was the one person in the Democratic Party that they actually thought could have run against Reagan in '84 and could have actually been competitive in some capacity. But Cuomo made it very clear that he was never going to do it because he's got too much dirt. Like the things that he had to do in the 70s and 80s with the Italian mafia.
I just don't think of him the same way I thought of Andrew.
No, I actually think that Mario cared about the people.
I do, I don't think he was. I think that Andrew was a bully, and I think he acted 100%. Like a bully, and yeah.
I'm a New Yorker. I am here because I actually am from New York and I care about the people. I'm not a Nepo baby. You may think I am. That's really Fredo. That's my little brother.
Fredo. But he's so
Fredo, not me. I'm Michael. I mean,
definitely by the time the genetic pool got down to Chris, they had run out of all the good stuff. But
that's for sure. Well, actually, I take it back. You know, in a way, Andrew is not Michael. He's Sonny.
Okay, that might be. Okay, I could see that. There is no Michael. That's the point. The Cuomos have no Michael.
What are you going to do? I got to be like Sonny. And then this other guy is Fredo, you know?
And you know what happened to Sonny.
Well,
stay in the car, Sonny. Stay in the car.
He decided not to stay in the car, politically speaking, and he ended up getting politically assassinated. That's what happened.
He was a bully. Because he was a bully.
And it's a shame that that's how to get him out of office. It could never be about an actual economic scandal. No, can't have that because that exposes the system and we can't have that. And so we are already running late and we have another show that we have to hop on. But
which I didn't really even know was happening.
I CC'd you on the email.
I don't read those emails.
You need to.
No, just message me when something's happening.
Fair enough. Well, it's already late because, we got to have that conversation. But we want to make sure that if you guys are here, you know the routine. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. We are consistently getting around 75 to 80 live stream viewers without the aid.
Did you run patrons?
We have our patrons. We want to thank you guys for supporting our channel. And of course, we hope you enjoyed the conversation. On Monday, Christmas Eve, no longer Festivus because Jen ruined it.
I ruined Festivus.
Yes.
You agree?
Your fault.
Talk about punching sideways, man. Talk
Well,
about
if you want to know,
Festivus.
well, think of well for you guys out there. If you want to know who we're going to be celebrating Christmas Eve with, it is none other than Butch Ware. So I hope you bring your popcorn because it is going to be a fun conversation, and we hope you guys will tune in. So I haven't decided yet what's going to go down on Sunday night, assuming I'm going to potentially do another pontificating with Pete, although around the holidays, you never know. And I will be traveling on Monday, so we'll see where I end up.
We got a package for you.
You did?
Yes.
Oh,
it came to you, came to Pete at Gen Change, but it came for you.
For me? Oh, that's
Didn't
awesome.
you tell me something was coming for you?
I think something is coming, like a camera of some sort. So
that might be what it is.
Might be what it is. So we're excited about it.
It is.
And so, guys, remember, smash that like button, share, and subscribe. Do all those things that we ask you to do. I would tell you all that you're all wonderful, and you know.
Why is our background black? Why are we? What happened? Why are we black?
What do you mean?
Why are we black?
I don't see black.
Our background isn't right. My background looks black.
You changed it.
No, now I see it. Now it's good.
It wasn't that way on my end, but you did.
I'm having issues. And
you
also,
have a lot of issues.
I have a lot of issues. I got some issues. When we did the countdown, it didn't play at all on my screen. It just would not play it. I think that I might need to upgrade this. I think it's a Chrome problem.
We're going over right there, guys. So check that out. That's where we're heading. And so make sure that you smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. And we'll definitely see you on Monday.
Bye, guys.